Public Wi-Fi, you can't get the Open Village guest if you're looking to log in. The password is guest 2020, capital G.
Pro video should be that. I still got a minute.
We'll like hang loose and wait for you.
Just trying to get the mouse back on my computer now. There we go. Mm. Good.
There's our favorite engineer.
Hey, Kayla.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
Kayla, you're famous in a very select, small.
That's all right.
On Zoom, just- Oh, and Bill. No, that's
John.
not Bill. John, thank you. So. Just Bill is missing on there. Do
It-
everybody,
Is Bill supposed to be?
Yeah, he told me talking to him today, he's going to be.
Okay.
he might just be running late.
They sent the agenda.
Mhm.
You don't,
No. You know me.
the table?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Who else needs a sign-in sheet? Did it make it around? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Everybody knows Paul.
He signed in anyway.
Yeah, Bill said it.
Excellent. I'm just gonna put down those he's absent.
Oh, there he is.
Does anybody have to be designated as filling? Oh, no, Siggy's an alternate.
He's
Okay.
an alternate. We got a full.
Yeah, no,
house
we're good.
Otherwise.
I just like to double check before we start.
Should double check.
Want to make sure the minutes are right. Okay, I'm ready when you
You-
are.
I'll call the meeting to order. Just for informational purposes for the public, tonight's meeting has nothing to do with Rich Road. If you're here for Rich Road, we're dealing strictly with the project that's proposed on Route 310 adjacent to the nursing home. And the public hearing has already been held on this project. We're doing the detailed environmental assessment and review as mandated by the state.
And the Ridge Road project never comes here, right? I mean, that's.
Well-
It's not under our.
It's not under our jurisdiction. We will be having a meeting with them in a week and a half, just for an informational thing. But we don't get to have,
We don't have a say in it.
we don't have real say. We're putting off the meeting minutes till next time, since they're not ready.
I just forgot to send them.
Boy, yeah, good. And so we will dive right into the SEQR Part II. And it starts by asking about the impact on the land itself. And we've got initial comments from D&L. And if any of you need the comments from them, do that. Yeah, there's a long one. And then the initial answer was yes, that there's proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. And A, the proposed action may involve construction on land where the depth to the water table is less than 3 feet. And B&L said that a moderate to large impact may occur. And we've got their notes right here. The average depth to the water table is approximately 1.5 feet below the ground surface. And the project will have 32 acres of ground disturbance. Stormwater pollution prevention plan was prepared and outlines the erosion control measures for the project to be followed during construction. And the it's all gonna be done with, in accordance with that SWIP. The B, the proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater, and there's no impact. C, the proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of existing ground surface. They said that it was a moderate to large impact. That the average depth of bedrock in the project area ranges from 3.5 to greater than 7 feet below the ground surface. So shallow bedrock is present on site, but the proposed project involves a limited area by excavation and no blasting shall occur. Ground mounted solar modules should be installed on piles driven into the surface. The SWIP outlines the proper erosion control measures for the project to be followed during construction. The project will require coverage under the SPDES general permit for stormwater discharges from construction activity. And this permit will be obtained by the applicant from the New York State DEC prior to construction. Anybody have comments on the bedrock status there? I felt like that it would be small and no impact at all on, based on bedrock.
Well, maybe Kayla, could you explain the difference between a small and a moderate impact?
So in this case, moderate to large impact is checked because it exceeds that numerical threshold of 5 feet. Within 5 feet of existing ground surface. Typically, so at the top of part 2, there's kind of that tips for completing part 2, and one of them notes that proposed projects that would exceed a numerical threshold contained in a question should result in the reviewing agency checking the box moderate to large impact may occur. In this case, the supporting document outlines why that's checked, but then goes on to suggest that this will not be a significant impact to the land. So that's really the reason that that's checked. It's just based off of the guidelines given within the SEQR documents.
Labeled as a small impact. The comments are that the project will involve 32 acres of ground disturbance, which may result in temporary increases in erosion during construction. The proposed installations will result in a net increase in impervious surface on the project site of less than 1/10 of an acre. The SWIP was developed by Ingalls and Associates, which will be followed during construction. Erosion and sediment controls are shown on the site plans. And the SWIP addresses the construction and maintenance of all temporary and permanent stormwater controls required for the project. Any comments on that? G, the proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area, and there's no impact. Number 2 is the impact on geological features. The proposed action may result in the modification or destruction of or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site. And the answer was no. Number 3, the impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies, example, streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes. And the answer is yes. A, the proposed action may create a new water body, no impact. B, the proposed action may result in an increase or decrease of over 10% or more then a 10-acre increase or decrease in the surface area of any body of water, no impact. C, proposed action may involve dredging more than 100 cubic yards of material from a wetland or water body, no impact. D, the proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body. That's a small impact. Let's see. And our comments from B&L, a field wetland delineation was completed for the project site. The resulting wetland boundaries are shown on the site plans. One freshwater wetland. Wetland A was identified on the project site during the delineation effort. The wetland is assumed to be federally jurisdictional to the Army Corps of Engineers as water of the U.S. under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. The wetland does not correspond with any New York State DEC mapped wetlands, therefore does not expect it to be state jurisdictional. The project will involve placement of solar arrays and fencing in wetland A. These actions are not considered jurisdictional impacts by the USACE, the Army Corps of Engineers. The proposed access road and underground electric utilities cross wetland A, which will result in approximately 0.09 acre of impact. The applicant submitted a joint application form for nationwide permit number 51 from the Army Corps of Engineers and Section 401 water quality certification from the New York State DEC. All necessary permits will be obtained by the applicant prior to construction, and all permit conditions will be followed during construction. Anybody have questions or comments on D? E, the proposed action may create turbidity in a water body, either from upland erosion, runoff, or by disturbing bottom sediments. That's a small impact. Ground disturbances with the proposed infrastructure may result in increased upland erosion. Once again, there's comments pertaining to the SWIP, which is designed to prevent any problems from that. Any further comments on that? F, the proposed action may include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water from surface water, no impact. G, the proposed action may include construction of one or more outfalls for discharge of wastewater to surface waters, no impact. H, the proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies, a small impact. And the responses from B&L are to see the previous answers relative to the SWIP. I, the proposed action may affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of the proposed action, no impact. J, the proposed action may involve the application of pesticides or herbicides in or around any water body, no impact. K, the proposed action may require new or expansion of existing wastewater treatment facilities. There's no impact. Any further questions or comments on surface water? Number 4, the impact on groundwater. The proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer. And the answer is no. Number 5, the impact on flooding. The proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. And the answer was yes. A, the proposed action may result in development in a designated floodway there's no impact. B, the proposed action may result in development within 100-year floodplain. There's no impact. C, the proposed action may result in development within a 500-year floodplain. No impact. D, the proposed action may result in or require modification of existing drainage patterns. A small impact. And the comments are that the project will result in less than 1/10 of an acre of new impervious surface within the project site. Associated with proposed equipment paths. Temporary ground disturbances will also result from the installation of the security fencing, solar panel array, and underground electrical lines. A SWIP was developed by Ingalls and Associates, which will be followed during construction to minimize stormwater runoff. The SWIP addresses the operation and maintenance of temporary and permanent stormwater control measures for the project. Stormwater runoff will be directed to on-site waters. Impacts to surrounding properties from changes to existing drainage patterns are not expected to be significant. Any comments on number 5? Number 6 is the impact on air. The proposed action may include a state regulated air emission source. And the answer is no. Number 7, the proposed action may result in loss of flora or fauna. The answer was yes. A, the proposed action may cause reduction in population or loss of individuals of any threatened or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government that use the site or are found on, over, or near the site. And the answer was no impact. B, the proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government. And it's listed as a moderate to large impact. The comments are, let's see. We've got extensive comments. The proposed action is likely to have a small impact on local flora and fauna. The USFWS information planning and consultation system indicated that the project site is within the range of one species, the monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly is currently a candidate for listing under the Endangered Species Act. The New York State DEC Environmental Resource Mapper did not report any state listed threatened or endangered species for the project site. The project site currently contains open fields that may support the monarch butterfly. After construction, the inside of the solar array will be seeded with a pollinator seed mix, and herbaceous cover will persist. No significant adverse effects to monarch butterfly habitat are anticipated to result from the project. Due to recent records of threatened and or endangered grassland bird species at the site, and since the project will be disturbing over 25 acres of apparently high quality bird habitat, in their letter dated November 8th, 2022, the New York State DEC recommended breeding grassland bird surveys be conducted to characterize threatened and or endangered species use of the site. In response to these comments, the applicant has been coordinating directly with New York State DEC. The DEC determined that a Part 182 incidental take of threatened and endangered species permit will be required for the project, and that mitigation would be required to offset the conversion of grassland habitat associated with the project. Options for mitigation include on-site mitigation, off-site mitigation, or a payment to the DEC. The applicant determined that on-site mitigation is not feasible for the project site and is moving forward with developing an off-site mitigation plan. The New York State DEC has conceptually accepted the applicant's approach to pursue off-site mitigation. The applicant will continue to work with New York State DEC to obtain an approved mitigation plan and a Part 182 incidental take permit prior to construction. All conditions of the mitigation plan and New York State DEC permit will be followed during construction and throughout the lifespan of the project and mitigation site. Do we have comments here?
So that hasn't been approved yet,
No.
obviously.
And if we vote to approve the project,
Right.
it's going to be contingent upon New York State DEC
On their plan.
approving their plan.
Correct.
Do you want to say anything or?
I can speak to that. Right now, the applicants, I guess, weighing two different options. One would be to develop a site on their own in the area that would serve as the mitigation site. This needs to be at least 25 acres in size. And essentially, it's just gonna be a field that they mow half of it annually. According to DEC, that's what the grassland birds like, gives them some habitat in the grass, and it gives them some foraging land, on the property to hunt. Another option that the applicant's looking at is working with a third party that actually specializes in offsite mitigation and grassland bird banking. They have a site already, so they would set aside 25 acres for this project on that site that they are experts in managing, and they would take care of it for the lifetime of the project. So those are the two options that are being weighed. And it's really gonna come down to probably just economics and what's most feasible for the applicant.
Any idea if the offsite mitigation sites are anywhere nearby?
That was my question.
The one
Yeah,
that- the
yeah,
one
they're
that
all
they
local. I think the
showed was-
one is,
I'm
I'm not sure if it's still in Canton or it might be in Potsdam.
No, it's in Potsdam.
Yeah, I think it's in Potsdam. And the other one, I know it's,
It's on the Potsdam Morley Road, almost. to
Yes.
Bicknell,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
almost there.
Behind Bicknell and all that area.
That area?
Just before you get to the auction. place.
Okay.
It's Not exactly like those birds that are there gonna
Right.
go there.
Curtis is on that too.
Okay.
And it,
And I think the other side similarly is, is within the same radius of
Yeah.
distance, more or less.
and you have an agreement in place that you could purchase that, correct?
Oh, I don't, but I think.
The company
Yeah,
does.
the applicant, is
Yeah.
working through that.
Any further questions or comments? You're giving me the look, John. Okay, you're good.
I'm good with Betsy. Betsy was concerned about this.
Do you have further questions?
Well, I guess it's up to the DEC, but it doesn't really seem like good mitigation.
The distance, I'm wondering how common, if mitigation is sought for this type of thing with birds, some sort of buffer around the impact site that, say, someone is allowed to pursue mitigation rather than right next door, which you would think would make more sense.
Mike,
Not-
do
not
you want
opposed.
to comment on what's gone on in the state? In other places?
Other places. As the crow flies, that site's about 7 miles. Talking to one of the DEC representatives, there's downstate, there's been mitigation that they're 100 miles away.
Not even in the same.
Not even in the same county.
So, thank you.
I didn't understand it either when I had to,
No, it's good. A lot of us-
My understanding too is this is like a relatively new thing with the grassland birds that a lot of these solar projects are having to deal with. So banking, at least in my experience, doing some background research on it is pretty common. That a lot of these projects are buying into like a larger site that's hundreds of acres.
That would make sense though, if the mitigation was within that 100 acres, we're not talking about 7 miles.
But even in this site, isn't it 70 acres altogether, but you're only using.
And I guess some of the history, I was involved with some of the discussions with DEC. We had initially proposed to them using our site as the mitigation site. That made the most sense to us. And really, I'm not an expert in grassland birds, but in my opinion, the site that we're creating, once it's all vegetated, is gonna effectively be the same kind of habitat. But they were concerned that if we were creating the mitigation site on our site, you're gonna actually have like a donut effect. Where you're taking a piece out of the middle of the site and then the perimeter would be your mitigation area. I guess the birds don't like that. And they are looking for more of a larger contiguous area that's not like segmented with a big hole in the middle of it. So we would have had to modify our design to meet that requirement, and that doesn't that doesn't work with solar. I mean, that's like the opposite of what you're trying to do with solar. You're trying to get you know, a larger contiguous area for the panels. So there's some back and forth with DEC. I think both of these options, based off of their feedback, are going to work for them. It's just a matter of working through the Part 182 permit, which is going to be a longer process. And it would be beneficial to the applicant to get the planning board steps out of the way and then take care of this Part 182 permit, you know, with less of a time crunch on their end.
Okay. I was, just an aside, I was kind of surprised that they were requiring this because the field has been mowed every year.
Right?
Yeah.
And which isn't very compatible with birds nesting.
Right.
Although, yeah, usually gets cut for the night
Yeah.
because it's wet.
Let's see. So we're up to C. The proposed action may cause a reduction in the population or loss of individuals of any species of special concern or conservation need as listed by New York State or the federal government that use the site or are found on, over, or near the site. And there's no impact. D, proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any species of special concern and conservation need as listed by New York State or the federal government. And there's no impact. Any further comments about the impact on plants and animals?
But they're more on the
Yeah, I
page.
think there's top of page 5, right?
Oh. Where's my pages? Oh, here we go.
That's page 5.
Yep, oh, yep, I got it. I guess I snuck in an extra page there.
Ian, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the condition that we're going to place in the special use permit, would that read that the applicant will secure a Part 182 permit from the NYS DEC? Is that the condition that we're looking for?
I would say yes.
Yeah, that sounds right. to me.
That's what I think as well. So just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Just for the public, you may not be aware, there's two species of birds that are of concern here. Where they go? One of them is the northern harrier, and the other is called the sage wren, which is very small. The harrier is a small hawk. Continuing on the impact on plants and animals. On my page got the proposed action may diminish the capacity of a registered national natural landmark to support the biological community it was established to protect. There's no impact. F, the proposed action may result in the removal of or ground disturbance in any portion of a designated significant natural community, and there's no impact. G, the proposed action may substantially interfere with nesting, breeding, foraging, or overwintering habitat for the predominant species that occupy or use the project site. And a moderate to large impact is listed, which basically we covered with our.
So this is here and fox and.
The common species that use the project site likely include the white-tailed deer, American red fox, Canada goose, raccoon, coyote, various bird species. The project will disturb approximately 32 acres of existing natural habitat to construct the solar panel array and associated site features. No tree clearing is proposed, and non-forested temporarily disturbed areas will be reestablished with vegetative cover through seed application. The fencing will have wildlife access underneath with a small gap. The only that's gonna really get affected is gonna be the deer. And that might be a good thing. H, the proposed action requires the conversion of more than 10 acres of forest, grassland, or any other regionally or locally important habitat. And it's a large impact. Designated grassland by the New York State DEC. The comments are the same as we've done already. I, the proposed action involves use of herbicides or pesticides for commercial, industrial, or recreational projects, no impact. Does anybody have any further comments on that section?
I have one.
Fire away.
As these uses, obviously, we already have projects that are approved in town. The fence that comes. Roads, 310, pretty busy road right there.
Pretty busy deer crossing area.
Yeah, that too. And something to think about as, you know, will fencing impact how deer are funneled to crossing roads?
State Street.
I'd have to
Which they
stop
already are
on
doing,
State Street
right?
to
Yeah.
get for a family of deer to pass for it on my way here.
Consider
I thought about that.
progress.
They cross there all the time.
They cross everywhere.
And there's some paths.
So there's just Kalenville.
I know, I'm trying to
I saw
figure
my
out.
meters on it.
You look under participants and see who's not muted.
They're both muted, I believe.
Well,
Oh,
we'll-
wait, this says there's 7 participants. This person. Got it. Sorry about that. I didn't realize there were additional people on because they weren't coming up. Okay,
Are we good?
yes.
Number 8 is the impact on agricultural resources. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources, and the answer is yes. A, the proposed action may impact soil classified within soil groups 1 through 4 of the New York State Land Classification System. There's a small impact. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture Web Soil Survey, there are multiple mapped soil units classified as prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance within the project site. These designations are comparable to the New York State Land Classification System, Soil Group 1 through 4 designations. Soils mapped within prime farmland if drained, and farmland of statewide importance comprise about 48.2 acres throughout the entirety of the project site, which is 44 acres. The proposed land use is such that the highly productive soils could be used again in the future. They shall not be removed from the property or covered by structures or impervious surfaces. The solar array and associated infrastructure are proposed to be constructed on non-active agricultural land. The project site is part of St. Lawrence County's Agricultural District Number 2. Therefore, approval from the New York State Department of Agri-Markets is required if NYSERDA funding is utilized for the project. The project will result in the conversion of approximately 25 acres of abandoned agricultural land, grasslands to non-agricultural use. The anticipated loss of agricultural land is not expected to constitute a significant impact, as there are approximately 615,240 additional acres of farmland in agricultural districts in St. Lawrence County, which will not be impacted by the project. In addition, the site will be restored to its original condition after the solar array is decommissioned, anticipated to be 25 years after installation. If NYSERDA funding is being used for the project, the applicant is required to submit a notice of intent to the New York State Department of Ag and Markets as part of the NYSERDA application process. Construction will not commence until New York State Department of Ag and Markets approval is issued. Any comments on section A?
Yeah, so why do they say this is non-active agricultural land?
Yeah, why is it abandoned?
It's an
It
intent
doesn't,
to not hang out.
they've been mowing it, so it's active
So, right,
marginally. Last summer Curtis took one cutting of hay off it in August.
so it's not abandoned
No,
and it's active.
May not be
Yeah.
in the future.
For the last 10 years they've been doing that.
yeah, yeah. So it's not abandoned, but. Any further comments there, John? Good. B, the proposed action may sever, cross, or otherwise limit access to agricultural land, which includes cropland, hay fields, pasture, vineyard, orchard, etc. A small impact. The comments are just the same as for section A. The solar array and associated infrastructure are proposed to be constructed on abandoned agricultural land and will therefore prevent access to that farmland. Adjacent and nearby farm fields will not be impacted by the proposed action. Once again, it's not abandoned, but
These are B and L comments.
B and L comments.
Where did that information come from, Kayla? The abandoned comment?
I mean, that was our understanding of the site. I mean, whether it's abandoned or not, this is still technically agricultural land. So we can certainly revise this to state, you know, what the board sees fit.
Can these comments be altered to remove the abandonment part?
Yeah, definitely for the record, they can.
I agree.
Does that change the impact to a moderate impact instead of a small impact?
In this case, I would say no, just because the questions don't specify, you know, if these are non-active or abandoned agricultural lands. So I would still say, you know, in this case, it's the verbiage within the supporting documents that should be revised.
Okay. C, the proposed action may result in the excavation or compaction of the soil profile of active agricultural land, and there's no impact. D, the proposed action may irreversibly convert agricultural land to non-agricultural uses, either more than 2.5 acres if located in an agricultural district, or more than 10 acres if not within an agricultural district. And B&L's said that it's a moderate to large impact may occur. Could you comment on that, Kayla? Since these projects specifically are reversible at the end of the,
Right. So I think we've talked about this before. This is one of those that I think the board should discuss. It's, you know, it's kind of subjective in a sense of your definition of irreversible. I guess we're being conservative with our response to this, so it's really up to the board's interpretation on how you guys would like to respond to this one. Essentially, we're just being conservative, saying irreversible. We're not, you know, of course, down the line, these are supposed to be decommissioned after a certain period. But what if there's advances in technology and these stay longer and leases are extended? So we're just being, you know, conservative with our approach to this response.
Any of you folks want to say anything on that, or?
Well, I think we've been operating under the premise that they will, that could be removed or will be removed, and that it could. It's returned to the original state and that it could be farmed the next year, hypothetically.
If we needed to
Soils are
farm
not
land more than
removed.
the solar energy
Yeah.
at that point.
Okay. I felt like it should be called a no or small impact, because it's small, it is reversible.
I don't think it's no one.
There really is there is no impact.
It's the only permanent impact, I mean, everything is included in the decommissioning bond, so if you were to go at the end of the lease and use that bond, it's all accounted for, including removing of the access road. I mean, some of that stuff might, I mean, maybe it makes sense to keep the access road there, but everything else can be removed. Post-construction, and that's the intent of the project, is it's a passive use of the land, and at the end of the lease, you can return it to its previous state.
So there's no
Right.
leakage or anything from any of the equipment into the soil. So there's no contamination.
But we have a lot of farmland in St. Lawrence County, so the impact is minimal. You lose 25, 30 acres here, 25, 30 acres there. You have hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland, so it looks like it has a small impact. But if the array stays up for longer than the lease, they may maybe not ever come down. So that has to be thought about.
At this point, though, the agreement is that
That's
at the
gonna
end-
come down,
that it's gonna come down,
right?
and they're putting up the bond to cover the expense for that.
Right.
So we have to make our decisions based on that.
Yep.
Because most of us won't even be around then.
I still don't see it as no impact. I think
No, it's not.
It's
It's definitely small impact. E, the proposed action may disrupt or prevent installation of an agricultural land management system. And they said it's a small impact.
There's the same thing.
It's basically the same issues. Land management system would also include, installation of tile drainage on the field, which the field is not conducive for in the first place because it's too flat and there's nowhere for it to go.
And it's got the
Pipeline.
pipeline.
Well, that's right, it's got the pipeline through it too, so nobody's ever putting tiling on that ground. F, the proposed action may result directly or indirectly in increased development potential or pressure on farmland. And B&L said, small impact. The comments, the proposed project involves the conversion of approximately 25 acres of non-active agricultural land, which we disagreed with, to a solar array. The town of Canton has reviewed all project documents and plans, including the prepared agricultural data statement, to ensure that the project is designed and constructed in accordance with all applicable requirements. Future development in agricultural areas must adhere to the town's existing zoning ordinances, which will help to promote sustainable, smart growth. In addition, the St. Lawrence County Agriculture and Farmland Protection Plan will aid in keeping important agricultural areas under agricultural use and preventing development in these locations. Any comments on that? G, the proposed project is not consistent with the adopted municipal farmland protection plan, and there's no impact.
That's saying the town doesn't have farmland protection.
Correct.
Land.
County does.
Right. The town does have in the solar law, text about protecting farmland
How about in the comprehensive plan?
in the comprehensive plan as well.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Okay. 9, the impact on aesthetic resources. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or are in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource? And the answer is yes. A, the proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. No impact. B, the proposed action may result in the obstruction, elimination, or significant screening of one or more officially designated scenic views. No impact. C, the proposed action may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points, seasonally, as in screened by summer foliage, but visible during other seasons or year round. Small impact in both cases.
You know, that one there is moderate. Publicly accessible vantage points, but then again, think about the site. You don't have too many people stopping on 310 to enjoy the view, but obviously the neighbors.
You
are.
don't.
True.
You really.
You do.
Yeah, you do.
We see people
We've had
stopping and
people
taking
stop
pictures.
taking pictures up there.
But granted, it's not a major
You don't
attraction
want
of the town. I'm with you, just trying to understand the impact and thinking about publicly accessible places along that stretch of the road and considering the conditions here, the impact could be moderate. That's what I'm saying. Well, is it? Maybe not. The Maplewood facility, is that publicly accessible property?
It's private property and they support the project.
Right.
I can give you the comments from B&L. Construction activities and the resulting solar array will be visible from nearby properties. The project is unlikely to be visible to citizens enjoying nearby municipal parks and aesthetic resources within the town and village. There's forested land adjoining the proposed solar array to the north and west, and a hedgerow to the east, which will remain and will buffer visual changes from vantage points in these directions. The solar array and associated infrastructure will result in a permanent visual change to the local view shed. The solar panels will be approximately 10 feet tall. Existing trees along the outer property boundary will remain, and additional screening trees will be planted along the southeastern side of the project to further reduce visual impacts. Ingalls and Associates provided visual renderings for the project, which included photo simulations of the proposed solar array from primarily the adjacent nursing home, State Street Road, and State Highway 310. The photo simulations indicate that the solar array will be visible from these adjacent residential properties and high roadways. To reduce visual impact, evergreen screening trees will be planted along the southeastern boundary of the project site. The Town of Canton Planning Board has reviewed the proposed site plans and visual simulation to ensure that adverse visual impacts are minimized to the extent possible. The proposed overhead utility poles will be similar to existing utility poles located along State Highway 310.
This is a gateway road. I don't know if anybody realizes that. There are Route 11, both east and west, and 68. And Waterman Hill Road, County Route 27. Is that County Route 27? Going out from St. Lawrence, and 310. There's six of these roads called gateway roads, and they're supposed to be treated a little differently because they are the way people come into the village. But the plan doesn't really say much about how to treat it.
Well,
It just says,
I thought that same thing, but I thought that would be down in the consistency with community plans and consistency with community character.
okay,
I don't know where that comes, but I was thinking the same thing with the gateway and consistency with community character as you're coming in. There's a significant number of solar panels.
well, I just wanted to let the board know that it is a gateway road.
We've already got a project on County Route 27 on the road to Morley.
Right.
That's not a gateway road, though.
You just said County
County
Route
Road
20.
27 south of the
Coming
village.
in from Waterman Hill. That
Through St.
section
Lawrence.
27.
The screening's tough, right? Because the trees, they're gonna take some time to
Yeah.
provide any sort of buffer.
Right,
Can
and
you
they're up on the hill. They're gonna be looking over the trees,
Yeah.
no matter what trees. they're gonna
No
be-
matter what.
They,
they put there.
you have no idea what might be. I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
I maybe not now, but at some point, definitely want to revisit that in terms of the solar law and how the use, this is, I don't want to get off track, but how the solar law dictates where the use can be cited within the rural zone of the town. I think, proposed later, we should revisit that, that the solar law, we should look at that with some more scrutiny along the village border. And there should be more of a buffer placed on the village border with regards to citing solar. And in that regard, taking into account, Morley, Windsor Falls, those hamlets as well. I think I'd like to revisit that after this as well.
Now, isn't this the one that the mayor wrote a letter on?
Yes. We're in a tough spot, though.
I totally agree. I know right now it's late in the game. However, we can pivot for other projects in the future. Probably a good thing.
Because right now,
What's that?
This will be the last one.
for some time,
Right, so that's the thing. Do we do it though, so we don't have to deal with it in the future if more projects come?
If they upgrade the lines,
but right now, we've already approved 6 other projects,
Yeah, I'm with you. I know.
and including one that is literally in the backyard of people on Farmer Street.
Right,
And if we say no to this one,
I agree. I'm not
it
saying,
opens us up to a
Right.
lawsuit.
I'm not saying say that to this one. 'cause
Well, I don't know,
conditions-
is that? I mean, Bill would be the one to answer that question. I mean, if there's serious consideration given to these things and
yeah, we have to have a good reason.
You would only be exposed to litigation to the extent that your determination is arbitrary and capricious.
Right.
And there's nothing I've heard in this discussion that leads me to believe that it's either arbitrary or capricious. These are legitimate concerns that are being discussed in a fulsome way. There's nothing arbitrary about your decision. So I don't think the risk of litigation is serious enough for it to be a factor in your decision-making process.
Maybe we can revisit again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Any further comments on that little subsection?
Oh, board members, does that stay as a no or small impact, or does it move, should we recommend a move to moderate to large impact?
like I said, I wasn't sure whether. What I was thinking as a concern belongs here or in the consistency with community plans, consistency with community
Or both,
character.
or both.
It could be both.
This is aesthetic. What do we see?
We're on
D.
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 D, yep. The situation or activity in which
Yeah.
viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is. Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, we're on C. We're on C.
I thought we're correct. I thought we were C.
Sorry.
Yeah,
So saying that's moderate.
yeah,
I'm over the fun.
yeah.
I'm good with that. When it says it's the most visible of the projects we've done.
B, the situation or activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work, a small impact, and recreational or tourism-based activities, which is no impact.
Would there be a small impact too? Are people going up 310?
Yeah, but they're not doing it specifically to as part of their tourism.
Have you seen the sunset?
And the comments from B and L are basically all the same as for C. See the response to C. And their explanation about the recreational or tourism, that it is not part of recreational or tourism related activities, specific activities.
Right, can you see it from the Remington Trail?
No.
That's what they're saying.
Neighbors? No. Yeah, I can't remember.
E, the proposed action may cause a diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of the designated aesthetic resource. It's not a designated aesthetic resource, so no impact. F, there are similar projects visible within the following distance of the proposed project: 0 to a half mile, half to 3 miles, 3 to 5 miles, and 5+ miles. Small impact, and there are other solar arrays of similar scale in other municipalities in St. Lawrence County. And this says including the village of Canton, it should be the town of Canton.
No. Or she's leaving the village. Not quite.
No,
Yeah, the site is in the town.
their property line is the town line, here's the
Right on the
village
line.
border. The town of DeKalb, the town of Governor, town of Rossi, city of Ogdensburg, and there's other ones going in Potsdam, Lisbon, Waddington. Any further comments on that?
Can I show you the sunset from the across the road?
It is beautiful.
Oh, we believe you guys. It's beautiful, sure, no doubt.
It's a great place to see what the weather is that's coming.
Any further comments on the aesthetic resources? Number 10, the impact on historical and archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. And the answer is no. Number 11, the impact on open space and recreation. The proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or a reduction of an open space resource as it designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. And the answer is yes. A, the proposed action may result in an impairment of natural functions or ecosystem services provided by an undeveloped area, including but not limited to stormwater storage, nutrient recycling, and wildlife habitat. And B and L said a moderate to large impact may occur. The comments, it referred back to 7. B and G.
About the animals.
Yeah, about the wildlife and specifically the birds. Any other questions or comments on that? B, the proposed action may result in the loss of a current or future recreational resource. And there's no impact. C, the proposed action may eliminate open space or recreational resource in an area with few such resources. No impact. D, the proposed action may result in loss of an area now used informally by the community as an open space resource. And there's no impact. Any overall comments on that section? Open space and recreation? Number 12, the impact on critical environmental areas. The proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. The answer is no. The impact on transportation. The proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation systems, and the answer is no. The impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy, and the answer is no. Impact on noise, odor, and light. The proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting, and the answer is yes. A, the proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulation. And it's a small impact according to B and L.
Yeah, it's during construction.
Construction noise. B, the proposed action may result in blasting within 1,500 feet of any residence, hospital, school, licensed daycare center, or nursing home. No impact. C, the proposed action may result in routine odors for more than 1 hour per day. And there's no impact. Once again, I got cut off. You got D. D, the proposed action may result in light shining onto adjoining properties, and there's no impact. E, the proposed action may result in lighting creating sky glow brighter than existing area conditions, and there's no impact. 16, the impact on human health. The proposed action may have an impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contaminants. The answer was yes. A, the proposed action is located within 1,500 feet of a school, hospital, licensed daycare center, group home, nursing home, or retirement community. And B and L called it a moderate to large impact may occur.
It is near the school and the nursing home.
The nursing home is right next door. The comments. The proposed action is located within 1,500 feet of the Canton Daycare Center and the United Helpers Nursing Home. The proposed action does not involve hazardous substances that may pose a risk to human health. Therefore, the proposed action is not anticipated to pose a significant risk to human health. No adverse impacts to these nearby sensitive receptors are expected to result.
Or then why call it a moderate impact?
Proximity.
Just on proximity alone,
It's located.
Kayla?
Yeah, based on the 1,500 foot numerical threshold there.
Threshold.
Yeah. All the other line items are no impact. Any further comments on impact on human health?
You know, what makes the nursing home different from me and Joel?
Because that's the way the state has written the environmental quality review process.
So individuals have no.
Oh, we didn't mention that. did we?
No,
Okay.
Well, these forms are used for every type of project, not just solar. Building a Walmart, building a Target, or building a high rise, all the standard forms that they use, not specifically for a solar. So that's, you know, if they're building a Walmart next door, or putting a truck stop beside it, there might be, you know, more contamination or something. So that's why they use them.
number 17, the consistency with community plans. The proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. The answer is yes. A, the proposed actions land use components may be different from or in sharp contrast to current surrounding land use patterns.
Do we need to read through all these?
I read that one and then I said that the rest of them were all no impact.
Okay.
If anybody wants to talk about them more, we
I don't have
can.
anything, just want to make sure we're following the process.
The proposed actions, land use components may be different from or in sharp contrast to current surrounding land use patterns. And B and L said that it's a small impact. Let's see, 17A. The comments are, the proposed project is not consistent with surrounding land use patterns, but the town of Canton passed a solar law in 2019 permitting major solar energy systems through the issuance of a special use permit in rural zoning districts. So the bottom line is it's allowed.
True, but that no to small impact, should that be changed to moderate or large?
Probably.
Yeah.
I would go with that too.
Mhm.
Any other comments on that? B, the proposed action will cause the permanent population of the city, town, or village in which the project is located to grow by more than 5%. No impact. C, the proposed action is inconsistent with local land use plans or zoning regulations. No impact. D, the proposed act.
Wait, Terry and everybody, I wonder with C. Part of, kind of coincides with A. Sharp contrast to current surrounding land use patterns. You'll see in our current, site plan review law and the solar law as well. In terms of, what am I getting at here? I guess more so on the site plan review side of it. How this particular use fits in with the surrounding character of the neighborhood. I would almost say that the impact is actually moderate or large for C, potentially. Even though the town has passed a solar law, which I'd like to revisit that later, especially along the boundary of the village border.
But we sort of have conflicting land use plans, even within like the comprehensive plan.
That's not surprising by any means, right? Unfortunately.
I mean, it's outlined in the letter from Mike there that we're both supposed to promote clean energy and
Mhm.
It's not.
areas on the edge of the
Not inconsistent
village.
with the local law, the way it's written now. It's in a rural district,
Right,
allowed in a rural district.
right. But as you apply the site plan criteria, we have to examine whether that impact on the characteristic of the neighborhood. And if you look at that site right now.
This is talking specifically about plans and zoning regulations.
Right, and the site plan review law, that's part of our zoning law. So that, and listed with all sorts of things to examine when we think of these uses. And that particular piece that stands out, and we talked about it before, is, is it compatible with the characteristic of the existing neighborhood? I would say no, in many
Yeah.
cases. So maybe that should be moderate, even though it fits other pieces of our land use reg.
That's a difficult call because of the conflicting
I agree.
regulations. And they have no comment because they called it a no impact.
Right. And one more piece of information on that is the comprehensive plan for the town and village. That area at the intersection of State Street and 310, essentially, looking at with north up, everything to the south between State Street and 310, that is called out in the comprehensive plan for, should be considered for additional residential or village expansion. This site, while across the road, is not outside of that. As I've looked back on that, I've kind of wavered, right? Where the Sheasley's property was approved because maybe it was before maybe knowledge of how to apply the comprehensive plan was shared with, say, us or even the public. Sometimes a municipality can have lots of land use regs and nobody knows about them, right? So that was information that came to us more so recently. And that particular area is outside of that zone. It's something I use to consider this use of that particular site.
Can I jump in? Quick?
Sure.
Yeah, a couple things to keep in mind with this site too. While there could potentially be other uses for it, like you said, residential or, commercial development, which is I think what the town board's preference or village board's preference was. There's other constraints for this site that we've already considered under SEQR. You have the grassland birds, which need to be mitigated for. I don't know how successfully you'd be able to mitigate, a full residential development there if there was a demand for it in the area. Additionally, we have quite significant federal wetlands on the site. This project proposes a very minimal impact for wetlands, less than 1/10 of an acre. But if you were to go and put in new public roads, new utilities through that area, you'd end up with acres of impact. So I don't really think there's a feasible other development for this property other than farming or the passive solar use, which is what's being proposed and what's permitted under the code. And I think that section that you're discussing now, consistency with community plans, if you look at what the requirements are, at least from, you know, the way DEC guides the SEQR process, small impacts are fine if, you know, there's a little bit of a difference between, well, a difference between what the existing surrounding use is. But I think the primary concern for this section is consistency with the town code. And in the case of this project, we are consistent with the town code. We meet all the setback requirements, we meet all the other bulk area requirements. So I think, not to speak for B&L, but I think that's what they were getting at with a small impact versus a moderate to large impact, where you might, if you get the section 18 consistency with community character, maybe that's the more appropriate section for that.
Sure, but it also could apply to multiple sections throughout.
Yeah, sure.
I'm with you.
And you got that big gas line going down. Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. That too, I forgot about that.
Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Um. D, the proposed action is inconsistent with any county plans or other regional land use plans. And it's no impact. E, the proposed action may cause a change in the density of development that is not supported by existing infrastructure or is distant from existing infrastructure, and no impact. F, the proposed action is located in an area characterized by low density development that will require new or expanded public infrastructure, no impact. G, the proposed action may induce secondary development impacts. Example, residential or commercial development not included in the proposed action, no impact. Any further comments on this section?
Yeah, I got one more on E, or no, on D. Inconsistent with county plans. The county's farmland protection plan, probably not consistent with that, with taking active ag land out of production. Even though it's only being used for hay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's for most of our sites. Is
Yeah, that's true.
borderline hayland. You know,
So-
outside of the Mead Road.
Mead Road, which was corn ground.
Well, was the Nickerson Road planted in corn this year?
No,
No.
hay ground. Well, there might have been a little.
Yeah, a little bit.
That had been
Part of it
soil.
had corn, yeah, it was both.
Mhm.
So no interest in making the change to moderate for the county farmland protection plan?
Or at least small.
Small.
Yeah.
Small, okay.
It's not at the moment.
Okay. 18, consistency with the community character. The proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character. And the answer is yes. A, the proposed action may replace or eliminate existing facilities, structures, or areas of historic importance to the community. No impact. B, the proposed action may create a demand for additional community services. For example, schools, police, and fire. No impact. C, the proposed action may displace affordable or low-income housing in an area where there is a shortage of such housing. There's no impact. D, the proposed action may interfere with the use or enjoyment of officially recognized or designated public resources. No impact. E, the proposed action is inconsistent with the predominant architectural scale and character. No impact. F, the proposed action is inconsistent with the character of the existing natural landscape. And they called it a small impact. And the comments are, construction activities are unlikely to be visible to citizens enjoying nearby municipal parks and aesthetic resources within the town and village. The solar array and associated infrastructure will result in a permanent visual change to the local view shed. The solar panels will be approximately 10 feet tall. Existing trees along the outer property boundary will remain. and additional screening trees will be planted along the southeastern side of the project to further reduce visual impacts. The proposed overhead utility poles will be similar to existing utility poles located along State Highway 310. The change to the natural landscape is small in size and not in sharp contrast to the broader area. That's their comments.
Seems like
I
it's
think about
in sharp
I was
contrast.
thinking it is in sharp contrast.
To the project.
Yeah. Any other comments?
I guess if I can jump in with the visual.
That's what you're here
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, if I can jump in with the visual concerns, we have modified the landscaping plan at least once since the initial concept for the project and added an additional 20 trees. I think we're up to 61 staggered evergreens. There seems to be a lot of concern, obviously, from the adjoining residents, which we're sensitive to, and that it's a gateway entrance for the town. So if it would be the preference of the planning board, if you're considering, an approval tonight or a secret negative declaration, maybe condition that we communicate with the adjoining landowners and take one last look at the landscaping plan. And maybe even take a look at maybe doing like a localized berm for the entrance and exit that would screen more immediately oncoming traffic coming into the village and maybe traffic leaving, and screen some of the adjacent properties a little bit better, with the understanding that this is a challenging site. You're kind of looking down onto it, but maybe if you raise those trees up a couple feet at planting, that would help some of the screening. And also, if we kind of angled those berms and maybe dressed up the front a little bit more than just the staggered trees that we have now, that would make a more attractive entrance coming into the village or leaving. And it would be a nice compromise, I think. In the past, we've had some experience even taking that initial evergreen mixture that we've had and adding some different species in there. Evergreen's usually the preferred tree species just because it's year-round coverage. But sometimes you can take, flowering deciduous trees, something that would look nice in the spring, and mix up the tree variety a little bit, not along the whole, line of the fence for your bulk screening, but, here or there, just to give a little bit more visual variety. And I think that would help, show that the applicant's making, even more of an effort to address the visual concerns, since that seems to be, just getting the feel for the board tonight, that seems to be what the main concern is.
Question.
Yeah.
You said one last look with the adjacent landowners.
Yeah,
When was the first look?
well, they prepared the visual renderings.
What, from my side of the road?
I believe they did the whole, side of 310.
Was somebody was over on my property?
Nobody was on your property. I think it was just from the street.
Yeah. From the street?
Mike, is it possible to change what we would vote on at this
You
late
mean
point?
in the resolution?
Yeah.
You'd have to, you just put it in your,
There'd be a contingency like there was for the DEC
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
Yeah,
except the
add those.
DEC one is already covered because that's a required permit that they have to get. And maybe that's already in our resolution,
Maybe.
whereas this.
You can do a supplemental document. You have new matter that you want to address. It's not part of the original resolution. You can do a supplement to that. Now, the downside to that is that it is a new document, a new level of approvals. So these actions that you're taking have a very short statute of limitations, 30 days. So when you amend or you supplement, you start the 30-day clock running again. That's a lawyer's consideration. It's not really a practical consideration. If there's a change that you'd like to make, my recommendation would be that you make the change to conform the project to what you would like it to be. So don't hesitate to make that change. It's a resolution that we draw up for the board to supplement its previous approval. Okay,
Okay. And that's something that you would do?
I certainly can.
Or when you're doing the, when you're reading all that. You, number 19. Meet with the neighboring, number 20, you add it to the resolution. As a
Okay.
supplement.
So essentially additional conditions
Yeah.
outside of the
Yeah.
existing.
Right.
Outside of a-
Right, so that you can do it in a separate agreement, a separate document, or we can just amend the one that you previously approved, present it back to the board with those additional stipulations and have you vote on it again. We can do it either way. I think it's good to have everything on one document. Just makes it easier for the folks that come after to see the whole thing. And we have certainly made adjustments to other resolutions approving projects in the past. And the only downside to it is, as I said, it makes the project ripe for challenge every time you open that up again. But I'm not concerned about that from the legal standpoint. It's a question of how can you make the best possible and most comprehensive set of decisions about this project? I think that should be your focus.
Question, Bill, the existing resolution as written, the planning board hasn't voted to approve that yet. So, correct me if I'm wrong, so essentially the resolution still exists in draft form.
Well, I didn't know that. So that's even easier. The statute of limitations hasn't begun to run yet. So it's wide open in terms of changes. So thank you for that. The projects all run together in my head, I'm afraid. Must be even worse than you guys.
Okay. We're at the end of the SEQR Part II. Do we talk about it now, Mike?
What's that?
Or do we go to the Part 3?
Or you want to go through your list of
Yeah.
what you,
Everybody got their chart?
Mhm.
The magnitude of impact, duration of impact, and likelihood of impact. And the secret categories. First one is the impact on land. Anybody have comments there? I said that it would be a small impact.
I think that was our discussion.
And it is small, long-term and long-term, and it will occur. If the project happens. The impact on geological features. There was no impact on the seeker. The impacts on surface water. Small.
Where
Short
construction really.
Yeah, construction. Improbable. Right, yep, that's what I have. The impact on groundwater. No impact. The impact on flooding,
Small,
very small,
long term, it's the equipment pad, right?
yeah. And it will probably. The impact on air, no impact. The impact on plants and animals.
I had moderate, long term.
Moderate, long term is what I have.
So they have, yeah, moderate, long-term problem. John,
I have the same thing.
okay, just you're off quiet over there.
Oh, I'm agreeing.
Okay. It's out of character.
I'm not anti-things.
The impact on agricultural resources,
Small, long term, probable.
boy, we're all in agreement here. The impact on aesthetic resources,
I had small to medium. different design.
I had moderate, long-term probable.
I had that.
Moderate, long-term probable.
Yep. The impact on historic and archaeological resources, no impact. The impact on open space and recreation.
How does that have an open space plan?
The only open space plan we have is on 68.
Oh, is that a piece that's in the zoning regs that's zoned, I got you,
Open space,
got you,
big pile of water.
got you.
Small ones, small, yeah,
What
The-
was it? Small.
small, long-term,
long-term.
probably would
Thank you.
occur. The impact on critical environmental areas,
No,
no impact. Impact on transportation, no impact. Impact on energy usage, no impact. Impact on noise, odor, and light,
Small.
Small, short-term probable.
okay. The impact on human health, no impact. The consistency with community plans,
I had small, long-term probable, because it conflicts with the county.
Yeah.
Farmland protection.
yeah.
and you made some changes in the secret to moderate.
I
Yeah.
have moderate, long-term. Same for consistency with community character, I have moderate, long-term probable.
Yeah. So community plans and community character, both of them, the magnitude is moderate, long-term, and probably would occur. Do we have any further discussion on this overview?
It's more moderate than we usually have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've got moderate impact on plants and animals, aesthetic resources, consistency with community plans and community character. All of them got,
I was wondering earlier, do we have any documentation, like you said, downstate, they're 100 miles away from the mitigation site, from the actual project site, is there any documentation that that's actually doing something? You know, like if we set this thing up, you know, the Northern Harrier, is it gonna set up?
This is so new that we're just,
Okay,
I mean, I can look,
Yeah.
I can, you know. Check for you, but I just. I mean, I was
that
kind
and the visual impact, those two things, don't
with the
say as well
mitigation
as the
thing,
other ones,
I would know the first thing,
right?
I was curious too, is one of the options.
Payment to the
Payment to the
DEC, yeah,
DEC.
I noted that.
Did they tell you how much it would be?
No, and I don't think that was an option we were proposing. We were only.
No, I know, maybe you aren't.
Right, but
I
they
wondered-
list that as an option.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think we proposed that as the applicant as an option. I know we're just looking at mitigation, not payment to DEC.
Yeah,
So it'll either be either of those off-site mitigation options are the two options we're looking at for this project.
I didn't know if they tried to hit you up for $100,000 or something.
No, there's gonna be fees associated with the project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there'll be fees associated with the Part 182 permit, I'm sure.
Well, that's not a,
Typically, that's
a straight
determined, yeah,
file.
further on down the line when you get closer to the actual permit being granted. We'll come up with some sort of fee. And there's also, like we've discussed, there's fees associated with just the maintenance of the project. For the lifetime of the solar array. Whether it's the applicant that's gonna be taking over for that or, a separate third party. There's considerable cost.
oh, yeah, but that's not,
That's not what they're referencing. when they
yeah,
talk
and that's
about
not a
fees.
payment to the.
That's a
DEC.
separate, that's a separate thing with the
Yeah.
permit.
I
there are bird mitigation sites, throughout the state though. One I drive by fairly regularly is Montezuma. outside of Rochester. So, I think out of all the options, taking like a small impact like this, and I'm sure there's gonna be other projects that are going to have grassland birds identified. But taking like a smaller section of habitat and instead setting aside a much larger area of habitat that is not gonna be touched for the lifetime of the project. I think that's a pretty substantial mitigating factor for any T&E issues on the site.
I think he's right. That's the way the DEC, looks at it. It's a trade-off.
Yeah,
It's a trade-off. They're taking 25 acres, they're giving 25 acres, the life of the site. Until that decommission, that site is.
I mean, like anecdotally, I worked on a different Part 182 permit for a dredging project where there were fish species that they were concerned that there was gonna be taken for. So DEC, you set aside money for that impact, very similarly to this project, and they're actually gonna take it and develop habitat off-site, which is gonna be a lot better habitat than, where we were dealing with initially, which was a commercial port. So, this is an existing hayfield, probably not really prime habitat in the first place. And it's gonna be taken, and that area is going to be, set aside elsewhere as part of a much larger project. Potentially, that's gonna create permanent habitat for 30 years, so, at least.
yeah, but if you do this site in Potsdam, that's not a part of a big project. That's just,
But it's still.
It's
still
also,
trade-off.
it doesn't have the adjacent wetlands, I'm saying like if the northern harrier like that spot in Potsdam and be there already.
Right.
well, maybe it is. We don't know.
I don't know, that's.
Actually,
part
they
of my
might actually
question.
like hayfields too, from what I've read, because that opens up any kind of, prey that they're gonna find, at least with the harrier. So that's why you get a mix. You mow the one side to create the habitat, and then you have the hunting ground.
Who owns the one in Potsdam?
It's owned by the property owner for this project.
Curtis. Um. Do we go on to the part 3 here?
When would it be appropriate to ask for input from people? Because I know we've done that.
We have the option of asking for input or not, which the board can decide, because there's already been the public hearing on this.
No. But I'd be interested.
Well, then,
Totally agree.
you can make a motion to
Is this the
open.
time?
No, I do get the seeker part done,
Yeah.
and then when you're done with the seeker, you go on to the overview of the plan again, or discussion of the plan. So complete the seeker, part 2 and 3. Then once that is completed, then you can open up.
Relative to the special use permit. Okay. Do we have a form for that, Mike?
What's wrong?
The part 3?
Yeah. Right here, real short one. Part 3 right there.
There's no form in that.
Yeah.
Normally there is. I can't find it.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
This
duh,
is
on
all
the
the-
back of the first page.
Yeah, this is all the stuff.
I couldn't find
Oh,
it either, so.
That's all the stuff they.
Yeah.
All right.
These three.
That's okay, yeah, you have to kind of,
It'd be set back,
Okay.
and then go in behind. in the-
Do I need to read this first page, Mike?
No, you do the resolution.
It's upon, on page 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Upon review of the information recorded on this environmental assessment form. Is this for the part 3?
Mhm.
It comes after, yeah. You do both.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, we have to approve the seeker and then.
Then.
Exactly. And then the resolution.
Oh, okay.
Upon review of the information recorded in this environmental assessment form as noted, plus this additional support information. See Part 3 supporting information under separate cover. And considering both the magnitude and importance of each identified potential impact. It is the conclusion of the Town of Canton Planning Board as lead agency. That A, the project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement need not be prepared. Accordingly, this negative declaration is issued. Or B, although this project could have significant adverse impact on the environment, that impact will be avoided or substantially mitigated because of the following conditions, which will be required by the lead agency. Therefore, there would be no significant adverse impacts from the project as conditioned, and therefore this condition negative declaration is issued. A condition negative declaration may be used only for unlisted actions. C, the project may result in one or more significant adverse impacts on the environment, and an environmental impact statement must be prepared to further assess the impacts and possible mitigation to explore alternatives to avoid or reduce those impacts. Accordingly, a positive declaration is issued. The name of the action is the Northwood Solar Facility. The name of the lead agency is the Town of Canton Planning Board. The name of the responsible officer and lead agency is Ian McKellar. The title of the responsible officer is Planning Board Chair. What do people think? Do we have a choice on this, Mike?
We got three, one of these three.
Yeah.
One of those three.
Is this where we talk about the potential berms and improvement to visual buffers? No.
No,
That goes in the resolution.
Yeah.
yeah. This is the environmental impact.
And because it's specific to the environment. And not. Village and town plans and.
So we had some moderates, right? We had some changes to moderate, but on the grand scale,
3.
primarily no or small. That's primarily small, right?
And the mitigation
And the mi-
site's already in the plan,
Well,
or would that be under B?
do we have to specifically do B because of they're working on mitigation? Okay,
It's a type 1 action, so B isn't going to apply.
oh, B is not going to apply?
No,
Oh, okay,
it's type 1 because of the amount of area that's being disturbed.
okay. So we got a choice of negative or positive declaration on environmental impact. Any opinions?
My feeling was still, it was still negative on,
Yeah.
on the whole.
-2.
I can go with that.
Agree.
Okay,
Mitigation plans in place?
you want me to sign this one?
You want that one? Yes, that's a secret.
I'll want a copy. You take the original and give it to Heidi. But yes, I will want a copy for the record.
No, you read the. That's when you vote on it, like you said.
Resolution number 5 of 2023, the proposed action on Northwood Solar Facility. The resolution determining that the proposed Northwood Solar Facility is a type 1 action and will not have a significant adverse impact on the environment. Whereas St. Lawrence County NYS2 LLC. The applicant is proposing the Northwood Solar Facility, the project located in the town of Canton, St. Lawrence County, New York, and whereas the project has been classified as a type 1 action as defined by the State Environmental Quality Review Act in 6 New York NYCRR Part 617.4. And whereas the town of Canton Planning Board sent a letter and part 1 of a full environmental assessment form to other potentially interested agencies and involved agencies, as these terms are defined in the SEQR regulations found at 6 NYCRR Part 617.2, indicating the town planning board's desire to serve as the lead agency, as this quoted term is defined in the SEQR regulations, and to complete a coordinated review of the project in accordance with 6 NYCRR Part 617.6. And whereas responses from interested and involved agencies were requested, and each of the potentially interested and involved agencies has agreed to or raised no objections to the town of Canton Planning Board serving as lead agency for the project. And whereas pursuant to the SEQR regulations, the town of Canton Planning Board has considered the significance of the potential environmental impacts of the project by A, using the criteria specified in section 617.7 of the SEQR regulations, and B, examining the FEAF for the project, including the facts and conclusions in parts 1, 2, and 3 of the FEAF, together with other available supporting information to identify the relevant areas of environmental concern. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Canton Planning Board hereby establishes itself as lead agency for the project. And be it further resolved that based upon an examination of the FEAF and other available supporting information, considering both the magnitude and importance of each relevant area of environmental concern, and based further upon the town's knowledge of the area surrounding the project, the town of Canton Planning Board makes the determination that the project will not have a significant adverse environmental impact, and that the project will not require the preparation of a draft environmental impact statement. And be it further resolved that as a consequence of such findings and declaration, and in compliance with the requirements of the SEQR, the town of Canton Planning Board as lead agency hereby directs the town of Canton Planning Board Chair to sign the FEAF Part 3 determination of significance, indicating that a negative declaration has been issued for the project. This resolution shall take effect immediately and will be properly noticed.
Just for clarification, this is the SEQR resolution?
Yes.
Yes.
Not the project.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the neg deck.
Yeah.
Neg deck for the seeker.
Yeah, our form got the,
The heading shifted.
yeah. And abstain or add.
Unless I got the last one.
So the signature line is broken.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember, you're
I'm going in order. I learned my. Yeah, as well as should.
I pulled the bill though, and I didn't even look. I just signed the next line.
Yeah, you should sign it on his line.
Right.
But you didn't fill in your.
There's a column for yes and no. It's quite yes.
Well, that's because they're shifted. This is actually over here and those are supposed to be over there.
Write it in so it's
Okay.
very clear.
Clear.
Oh, those are fancy. Okay.
Yeah, I put those out.
The yes and no should be over the first two columns, and then the abstain absent, and then the signature.
copy and paste.
So the whole thing was shifted over.
Oh, who put that together anyway?
It just got pushed this way and then go down to the next line.
No comment.
You know,
You had nothing to do with it, right?
I just print.
Ziggy's not here.
Siggy is under the weather.
Oh. She's absent.
Make note of that, or
You're on,
share.
you're on the
Oh, geez.
wrong line. Boy, you can tell who's a
Made it all the
rookie
way
here.
through to the last.
That'd be the last name.
It's a good line.
John, where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to school?
UVM?
What kind of signature is that?
Hey, listen, I got it on the right line there, Ms. Brown.
Signature.
Wow, what is that?
They don't teach how to do
Cursive
handwriting in
anymore.
school anymore.
No, they don't.
By the time,
Finger and,
by the time he went through.
Mike, did you need to sign the bottom of that?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, thank you.
No? 44.
Yep.
Oh, I have to sign again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And data. for-
and date it in both the top two lines. So dated, and then I hereby certify this resolution was adopted on, and you put the date
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
and then you sign at the bottom.
Thanks, Ian.
Now when you hear sometimes it's a little bit,
I was wondering.
Yeah.
if you so choose, do we have a motion?
I will make
to
that
open? Second,
A second.
all in
Yeah,
favor?
stand up for-
Aye.
I oppose. Abstain. Okay. So we're open to public comments.
I just make a note that we did live on that land for 11 years before we built our house across the road 28 years
And there
ago.
was corn.
So we did live on the.
Those cows. So. It's not dead land. And the guy that owned it ran a farm for 75 years. His father had one before that. So it's not dead land.
Did I hear you say?
Did I hear you say that Maplewood has approved it? Supported the
Yeah.
development?
They are in support of it.
That was my question, because at the public hearing, McNeely was there and said they did not support it. So
It was-
I was surprised that he said that.
When was the public hearing for this?
In January, there were lots of people there.
January?
That was December.
Oh,
That
oh,
was
that's right. Yours,
Before-
yeah,
Yeah. before the holiday.
we had two more in January.
December.
Yeah, this was, first week in December, I
I
think.
think so, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's maybe.
Yeah,
That sounds right.
3 months ago, almost to the day.
I'm Joel Howie. I live right next door to the project. We own, my wife and I own about 80 acres. I'm developing a new apple orchard right next door. I just have a problem fundamentally with consuming land with solar panels at this point, because we have so much other space available that would make more sense to use. But I know that that's not what your decision is here. We have a lot of parking lots, roof lines that could be covered in solar panels before we start taking ag land and wildlife habitat out of existence. I mean, this is going to be out of production for 25 years. The country is continuing to have water shortages. Where's the water in this country? Right here. I think we're making a mistake by covering our land with solar panels. And that's just my personal view here. And I've sat in my neighbor's living room before, and you can see straight across this property from their living room window. So I understand exactly where they're coming from also.
And the traffic there, if you sit there from 7:30 in the morning until after 9 o'clock, I just couldn't imagine what the counter does. All the traffic that comes in for the county, the schools, the buses, the
You know, they're all gonna see that. Welcome to Canton. You know?
Yeah, they're gonna have that north,
Yeah.
so you wanna go east and west
Yeah.
with it?
Mm.
And somebody else brought up the deer population. We talked about that a little bit. I do think, having a border, an area that the deer will not, they can't get under 6 inches of.
Right.
That's just, they're not gonna do that. The fawns might, but, which is another, they're gonna have fawn problems in there, but, what it's gonna do, it's gonna funnel the deer to a specific location where they're gonna cross all the time, and I, you know, right now they have 2 miles of area to cross. You can see very well, but I just think that there is more of a wildlife impact than what, was reported here also.
Hi, I'm Anna Sorensen, Village Trustee, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for mentioning the mayor's letter. The village's concern with this project is that it is in fact directly adjacent to our existing water sewer infrastructure. And in terms of the possibilities for expansion and development for the village, this project would essentially foreclose that prime sort of space for expansion. Mentioned the comprehensive plan. That was a document drawn up by our community at large over an extensive period of time. And the siting for this project seems to go against the principles laid out within that document for expansion, development, you know, building resiliency for our community. And just to, you know, point out, you know, the village is getting, you know, boxed in here somewhat. And, you know, when we think about the impact that that will have in the long term, and even the shorter long term in terms of opportunity to expand our tax base, and then what the ramifications of that will be in terms of the services that we can provide in terms of, you know, all that existing infrastructure, of course, but recreation, complete streets projects, trails, et cetera. So we as a board are concerned about the impacts of this project, given its particular location and how it would essentially remove possibility for the foreseeable future in that way.
Could you address how you see this project is different from the one on the Sheasley land?
You know, that was a good question that you brought up earlier, and you know, I was asking myself that question too. I'm not
Because
really.
we got zero feedback from the village of Canton at that time.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I will say one thing is that in the comprehensive plan, there seems to be, you know, from my understanding of it, some suggestion that out that way would be the, you know, sort of direction for development, suggested direction for development. And, you know, out Judson Street, not quite so much. And so that may have been part of that, but I mean, that's a fair question, and you know,
Is
it's a little late now.
the Sheasley property off the roadway? I mean, is there
It's
enough?
back.
I mean,
It is back.
so I think that's probably one reason. Not many-
It's literally in the backyard of people on Farmer Street.
Right.
Well, it's literally in the backyard of actually others, Bose's, it's on their property line. And
Right.
Farmer Street is a much further distance from where it is.
It's
It's behind
310.
our house. It's
Yeah.
2 fields behind our house. But it's directly on the property line of one family. And when you say you got no feedback from the public, are you saying, or the?
There was
public?
nobody at the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, in this case, I thought you were referring
Yeah.
to the
Oh, yeah,
municipality.
from the.
I'm speaking on behalf of the municipality.
Well, a lot of us, I thought I was following in general solar progress, and I realized I wasn't at all.
So a couple things in the comprehensive plan, that zone between Farmer and 310 is mentioned explicitly. That should be the focus of future expansion for the village, not the site where this proposed use is proposed. And the boxing in piece, on the one hand, I'm conflicted. I kind of like that because the village in my opinion, needs to focus on the core rather than expanding further to the outskirts. I mean, I guess that's all I want to say. on that.
My question, because you mentioned development, but I heard what you say about the possible uses of the land are rather limited. There's a very shallow water table there. There's a gas line running, a gas main running through there. I mean,
And our project
how
is based,
realistic is residential development in that area?
It was for sale for a long time.
It was for sale for a long time and it wasn't purchased for residential.
Certainly.
Or other uses too.
It was listed way too high to start. That's why I sat on it for a long time.
And there was two homes that were totally
Yeah.
ruined inside. They had been ruined. I mean, no one, you had to tear them down. and start over.
Yeah.
So the buildings were useless that were left standing,
In the barn.
in the barn.
Yeah, they were all,
That's all.
they were all liability.
Oh, definitely.
They were total.
We were in it. And we lived in one for 11 years. It wasn't like that.
I'm curious, the neighboring landowners, if other uses that are permitted in the rural zone, single family homes, multi-dwelling homes, say someone wanted to put up a higher density or even commercial uses as well, would what would your feelings be about those types of uses on that parcel?
So we dealt with the dentist's office that was constructed right next to our house, right, that was a very good experience, actually. It's a beautiful building. I think that's a good use of that land. And if we have more buildings like that along the roadway, I wouldn't have a problem with that, but having 45 acres of black, and taking the wetlands out of the back side of it and just, I mean, I don't care if you have the solar panels are gonna stop animals from using that. I mean, some birds are still gonna go in, but the geese are not gonna land in it anymore. The duck, I've seen mallards, all sorts of wildlife back there. It's going to affect that. But you also see some residential development happening out our way too. There's a new house on the corner of Finnegan Road and 310.
I have quite a few.
Abby McCollum just built a new house. I say just in the last couple of 10 years or 15 years. But how many new housing starts do we have in Canton to begin with? So it seems like a lot of them are happening out in our direction. Sweeney's built a new house up the street, a little further. So that's kind of what I was seeing, was more like a residential type atmosphere. We have the dentist's office, which is an institutional use that supports the residential use of the area. I don't know, that's kind of what I was looking at.
For clarification, the fenced area is how many acres?
hang on, wait.
36.
And the panelists say 25 to 27.
Yeah, I don't want to give you the wrong number, but I can just pull that. I know.
But also, part of your decision, you also work out pilot agreement or how is that all worked out?
That is dealt with by the town board. That's totally outside of our.
Because, so the project has to be approved for it to go to that step.
Yeah.
And the pilot is run by St. Lawrence County IDA.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So the fenced acreage of the array is 30.8 acres. And just the area of the panels was just under 25 acres. So you're taking about 5 acres of that out, and the rest is panels.
And what about in the winter when they're covered with snow, like January, how much sunshine did we get?
It's a tracker site. It won't hold snow.
The tracker panels have motors on them, so if there was a snow load, they can gently rock back and forth into the snow. Yes, just for introduction, you guys have probably all heard me talk before, but my name's Johans. I was a civil engineer on the project. This is Holly from Nautilus. They're going to be the long-term operators of the array, and they're the ones, should it get approved, they'll be constructing it. So, we'd be happy to answer any of your questions. I think we have Ryan on the call too. I see him on Zoom.
Right.
Is he with Soul America?
Yeah, he's with Soul
Okay,
America.
Yep, I've spoken to Tony a lot on the phone.
Yep.
I gotta say that Soul America is a great company that, I mean, they've been very open with me on the phone. Anyway, I know that they haven't called yet, but, Tony seems upfront and honest with me, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well.
So the Nautilus side, operation and maintenance of the project?
Yes,
Gotcha. Is that something Nautilus has a significant past history with?
yes. Oh, yeah.
You-
The-
you-
Maintaining the sites
Yeah, rough time frame, last 10, 15 years, doing stuff like that?
since 2006.
Gotcha. Just in reading about these kind of projects, oftentimes you'll hear that O&P operation and maintenance companies change hands. And that can change, or owners of the array can change hands often. I'm just kind of curious.
Oh, no, we actually, we are unique in that we are a long-term owner. We don't flip them. We'll own them for the life of the project.
And that's just a guarantee from the company, isn't it?
Yes.
Gotcha.
As part of the resolution.
The resolution says that if they do change
But we
hands,
won't, we
that-
don't. Nautilus does not sell projects.
all of the requirements that we would have approved
That's
transfer,
That's true.
and we have to be notified well in advance. So they can't just go flip and
Well, I
No,
guess they
there
could-
are those that do, but we do not. What's your specific question on maintenance? Maybe I can get into more detail.
No, it was more so just maybe I presented that wrong, just with I guess the ownership of the array and how that can change hands often in some cases.
No, in this case, Soul America owns the project. If it gets approved, then we conclude the ownership of it. Then we will own it. We will be the long-term owners.
Gotcha.
And then,
And Soul America will not be the owner.
no. They were the developer.
That was a little-
They never intended to build it.
I know, it's just
But
how that information gets down, dipping down sometimes, they get down to the local level.
How long will
No,
it take to construct it? Once everything's passed and you start construction, how long is that process?
150 days to 170 days max. It all depends. Weather obviously is a factor.
I'm just thinking of school traffic at that
I
time.
was just gonna say, when they're constructing it, what's gonna happen to all that school traffic going into school?
This is bad now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just have to wait.
The only traffic that we actually create is when, during construction, when the trucks are coming in with materials. And we would have flaggers and make sure that they basically come off the road and they wouldn't be stopping on the road, so it wouldn't be an impediment to the traffic
Are you hiring local people to do this?
for the truckers.
Construction?
Actually, yes, it is a local company. I mean, not local to Canton, but local to the Syracuse, Buffalo areas where Green Spark Solar. So they are our EPC contractor. And they've been building quite a bit of solar in New York. Are you familiar with them? No,
What was the name?
Green Spark
Thank you.
Solar.
The entrance will be off State Street, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, at least.
Yes.
site plan, that's what it-
Yeah, it's off State Street.
So all those trucks are gonna come in, not by the school, but they're gonna be coming down 310, turning onto State Street and then.
I mean, not to speak for Nautilus or Green Spark, but at least in my experience, having seen these projects get built. Usually the big flurry construction activity, it's not the full construction period for the project. There's gonna be a couple week period where they're bringing material in and out, and they're gonna get the road constructed. And get, lay down equipment and everything on the site. Once that's done, a lot of the work, the actual work to construct the array is more fine details, working, with the electricians, getting the panels installed, getting all the wiring hooked up. That's the bulk of the construction period. So it's not gonna be this long drawn out, 3-month process where there's just trucks coming in and out, disrupting school traffic. It'll be more of a short term problem.
And it could be addressed to do that if construction material is intense in its delivery, it can be outside of peak commuting too.
It's never worked that way in my
I
experience.
was gonna say, I'm a little,
I've never seen it work that way.
So,
They
in
start working
theory, yeah.
early in the morning and school starts early in the morning and,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Well-
we gotta do our, and which is, they gotta do their job and school's gotta go there, you know, I understand that, but yeah, that's the way it's always been.
Doesn't have to always be like that, though, right?
That's what, it's the way it's always been. I didn't say it's the way it always have to be.
Those two coincide sometimes, right?
Often.
Mhm.
Is there a time of year that you try to start these projects?
Spring. Yeah. We're targeting to be able to begin this project in May, if we can. They give us approval.
So you, Soul America develops, you construct and you maintain.
Well, we purchased the project from them and then we construct it and then we operate it long term. Not
That's
also
a very
does
common
development, but
arrangement,
yeah, I mean, typically, their Soul America is a developing company, so their whole model is to create these projects and to network with the community. And then they seek long-term owners like Novos. And we've been working with Soul America on as a developer as well as an EPC contractor on other projects for quite a while.
And doing the one on Judson Street also.
Yes.
Who drove the stakes in the ground out there this winter?
That would be the surveyor. And the stakes.
Not
are
the
drilling.
stakes,
Drilling.
the drawing, the I-beams.
Oh, that was for the push-pull test. That's for a thermal resistivity test that we have to do. So they drive it, oh, who did it specifically? I couldn't tell you specifically who did it.
But it was through you.
Yes.
Okay.
If the project gets the green light and the project has existed for a year or two and we find issues that happened, and one of the things that I'm thinking of is there's a state drain right of way that comes over onto our property, right where we join, to the Curtis property. And I have just a little ditch that kind of takes it out down the hedgerow which is the reason I bought that little section that juts out there. That does overflow and there is several feet of water that does go over where you're going to be putting the solar panels. How easy are you to work with adjoining landowners to mediate problems like that?
I'm very transparent. So if you've got an issue, what I'd like to do is, if we get approval to build the project, we can, I can meet with you and all the surrounding neighbors and basically just talk through the project and you can talk through your concerns. And if you've got a particular water issue, we'll figure it out. Let's put it that way.
And to touch upon the water issue is kind of discussed a little bit during SEQR process, but Ingalls and Associates prepared a stormwater pollution prevention plan, which takes a look at the existing drainage through the site and the post-construction drainage through the site, once everything's all stabilized and constructed. So that's part of the special use permit. They're gonna be bound to maintain, the existing drainage through the site. That's.
Because that was another concern of mine, that if that fence isn't maintained and vegetation plugs it, it's gonna back up onto us and flood our property.
Yeah, that's part of the state stormwater permit too. You're not allowed to construct really any project over an acre that's going to show that you're increasing runoff off site from pre-construction conditions. So that's something that we had to look at as part of this project.
Yeah, we have to control it. I mean, we can't put sediment or water, running off of our project or.
I'm
onto
concerned
yours.
about the water coming under the highway because it drains everything on the other side of 310 and it comes.
It makes sense because there's quite a few wetlands on that side. So yeah, I'm sure that's why that's the case.
Yeah.
Well, even if, even under the best engineering conditions, if something needs to be fine tuned after we're into construction or even post-construction, if we get an event and something happens and we have to go back and fix it, I mean, we just have to be good neighbors and we've got to work together and we'd have to fix it.
Have we heard enough?
My name's Thomas Archeco,
Okay,
and
you've been quiet.
I've been here for 40 years, and I remember the old state road and then how that got changed around. I remember all the ice storm, all those poles, and I noticed like with the old old folks, or whatever we call it, Maplewood, you know, it's a nice, there's a lot of nice places, actually. But when you're driving from Canton and you're on 310, you know, originally it used to be different, but then there was the lights, you know, a little bit different. And now I think the way it sounds, it's all gonna be a massive bunch of solar. And to me, you know, when you're going from a city to an urban, you know, you expect to see what you see. You know, now you're gonna see, you know, more urban. And, you know, so it's gonna be a lot different. And then, and when you're on State Street and you're getting on 310, you gotta have that visibility to see 310 good. You
Well,
know,
these are set way back.
oh, yeah,
back
see, I
from the
didn't,
highway.
who gets the power?
It goes right into the local grid. And would be used locally. That's why these smaller projects are referred to as community solar. Because they're going into the local grid.
Oh, that's a lot better than what I got, cause I got in my backyard, the big towers, you know?
Like the Rich Road project is a completely different animal. That project, all the power is going into those high power lines and will be leaving the area. Whereas these smaller projects are going into our local grid.
When the sun's shining, my house will be solar powered.
Yeah,
Especially.
All of the smaller are going into our local grid.
yes.
Now, the local,
And there's a limit to how much the current grid can support in terms of projects. National Grid says yay or nay. And at this point, this is the last project that they have the capacity to accept. Because the local grid won't be able to take the juice.
So have they accepted all the other 5? Or 6
The-
that we have?
In the town of Canton, yes.
So the Viking Knoll also, the Riverside Drive to Morley
Yes.
extension.
Yeah.
So National Grid has the capacity for those that are within the town of Canton.
Correct, but no more.
This would be the last.
This would be the last one with the existing grid. Without tremendous alterations and upgrades.
So they can do it and we get the power.
Yeah. Do you want to comment on that,
No,
Mike, or have I said enough?
Well, I was gonna comment just briefly that if the project gets approved, and we would do this with the Sheasley's project as well, the Nautilus will be coming into the community and have, you know, some community events where people can come in and begin to subscribe for that offset of the power for these projects. And that's what makes the community solar projects work, is that the community is subscribing into it, so you get part of the offtake.
That would be the 10% savings on the national grid bill if we signed up through the community reduction. That's what that was.
And, you know, if you're in an apartment or, you know, in a house that you can't put solar on yourself, it's a way for you to be able to have renewables.
Speaking of the grid, where do you think a majority of the power comes for our local grid at the moment?
Water, is that what I guess?
Hydro. It's kind of wild that we're building, or well, building additional power resources that are competing with existing renewable. For example, like take Moses Saunders, producing a ton of power, right? When the wind gets going in northern New York and the wind turbines come on, the grid can't handle it. So Moses Saunders, from what in terms of asking around, they have to let water pass the power dam.
And that's gonna be true too with the solar projects.
That's so wild.
But the
But that-
regulation with water,
But that, see, the state of New York
I know.
has made these decisions, which makes it economical for the solar
That's
companies.
why they were putting the new power lines,
Increase the
transmission lines.
The economic piece.
But still, the solar is intermittent.
Right.
Whereas the hydro, like you say, is around the clock.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and they're already having problems balancing
Right,
the
right.
electricity, but that's not our decision to make.
I know.
We have to decide based on town of Canton solar laws.
I think they're anticipating a higher
like,
usage.
You know, I think that the solar panels should go in Arizona. Right, but as opposed to one of the cloudiest places in the country.
Right.
But that's not our decision to make.
And I agree with you, Chair. I'd like, any other questions? I wanted to ask, the planning board consider some.
I just had,
Yeah.
just back to the pilot question. I know that you guys aren't the deciding board for that, right?
Correct.
Can you provide any contact information with me on who makes that decision or,
Well, on the negotiation of the pilot,
yeah,
that's through, IDA Rich Williams.
Who?
Rich Williams.
with Williams? Okay. Okay.
Your town board.
Where's the conduit?
100%. Absolutely. And the county.
Because I'm a business owner here too, you know, and I just, you know,
The county-
I know most pilots are less than what the actual taxes are paid, and I would like the same program, but I can't get that.
Same page. I know it's that. I
The
don't want,
county
I don't
is
want to.
reaping the benefit.
True, the way the pilots are arranged. However, you know, take this parcel, if another use was going in there. It would be taxed on its assessed value of that improvement, right?
Yeah.
I know, and the way,
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily. They can get a business exemption. They can get a pilot. And the pilot will be less than what the solar people are paying
so that goes for anybody,
anybody.
amazing. Wild.
The thing with pilots is that, it's, again, we're not directing this. This is part of the NYSERDA process. They have to negotiate pilots
Right,
And community benefit.
and
agreements.
community benefit.
right, but how does, you know, real property tax law 47, the solar exemption, the 15 exemption, which the town recently opted out of?
But these ones are locked in.
Right, so I know that's what's crazy about it, right? So we allow the use, I get it. You want to support renewable energy for sure. That's then, and for developers and landowners to benefit from that tax exemption by the town not opting out, because if the town did not opt out, those, say, a solar array, the assessment would be based on the construction of that
No.
project, right?
No,
Not even without,
no,
without
the
the exemption.
state, New York State is giving us a calculation of how to assess these solar arrays. Well, guess what? That didn't work. 3 municipalities downstate are suing the state because of the values was too low. You have to go by the way the state is calculating the solar arrays. Hypothetically,
Jesus,
Rich Road projects, $380 million,
right, which is outside of the.
assessed
40
value 94 million.
I know, that's why it's wild.
So it doesn't go by construction cost.
Right.
This is all being by New York State.
Right.
And we fortunately don't have to make those decisions.
True.
Let's move on. Do we need a motion to close the public discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make that motion. I opened it, I can close
Yeah.
it.
Do we have a second? A second. John second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Just checking.
It's here for the show.
Let's see. Do we have the stuff that we would potentially take action on the special use permit?
That would be resolution 6, the bigger one.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, but you should
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
discuss.
Yeah.
Discussed it a little bit.
I'm wondering at what point, can we request some updated visual renderings, you know, I mean, if there's some more screening that could be done to help satisfy. I would like to see that done. You know, given the location of this site.
If I could make a suggestion, maybe condition a supplemental visual assessment with the updated landscaping plan. And that can be conditioned.
Like what Bill said.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I don't believe this was part of the initial presentation, but I think especially since there's now elevation concern of this project. Any updated visual assessment should include one on the site diagrams, which would show the view over the field. I know that's a concern you have specifically, so we gotta pick some of the screening up in some of those areas, especially.
Yeah, you had mentioned meeting with the neighbors, berms and raised plantings of
Yep.
some sort.
Yeah, I think Ryan's on the call too, so we'll get the whole team involved.
If you want to see our line of sight, I'd be happy to have you come over on our property and actually look to see what we're gonna see.
The same thing here, probably. It'll be the first time.
Yeah, we can swap information after the meeting.
So we would need to put in an additional statement.
Yeah, I would,
If not really,
yeah, you just put another condition, and I would probably,
would be 21.
yeah, 21 and however you want to word it, and have Jenny word it.
I probably should not be doing that.
Yeah, that would be a good bill.
He's not there anymore.
Not there anymore.
Oh, did he step out?
Yeah. So what do we want to say?
Contingent on
The applicant shall consider additional landscaping. Provide site plan with,
I don't think you want to say consider.
yeah, provide, very good, thank you.
They will.
Yes.
Applicant will,
Meet with them surrounding.
yeah,
Property owners.
meet with, yeah, property. Adjoining property owners.
Including across the street.
Is the main concern the visual impact from the street?
They live up. Their house is up. the hill.
I realize that, but is the main concern of the village from the street?
Yeah.
This
So that's the town.
The town,
Yeah.
yeah.
The village, yeah, I'm sure,
I'm just wondering,
They're entering the village.
when we did look at the visual, you're suggesting that we do some additional visual
I
animation?
I can, yeah, I conceptually have an
Yeah.
idea of what we need to do.
Okay,
yeah, when you do your first visual, you can't go on somebody's property. You know, it's-
Without
So you're
permission.
doing it from
Without
the street.
permission.
yeah,
Across
the
the street,
last
it goes.
time I did it, it was all from, it was dictated from the village that I was working with. And it was, what, they said, we want to be able to see what we're going to see along this corridor.
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah,
That's what we do, but it's.
yeah,
since
and it
go on
was,
Mr.
it was
Smith's
not
property,
going on, yeah,
you know, I
going
can't
on
go
someone
to-
else's property.
So we want to require the applicant will meet with adjoining property owners and
Develop and provide an updated landscaping plan
And visual system.
and visual assessment.
We'll be using line of sight in there.
Sure. I normally, I'm surprised we didn't include that actually initially. I normally include that.
Come out when there's a nice sunset.
Shouldn't block the sunset. Right? They block the deer and the other stuff that we see out there.
So adjoining property.
will
Gonna be
develop
a
and
deer
provide
barn
an
out there.
updated landscaping plan.
Visual.
And visual impact.
Looking for a noun, need assessment after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Visual impact assessment, yeah.
The applicant will meet with adjoining property owners and develop and provide an updated landscaping plan and visual impact assessment.
To,
Do we want to say more?
To address line of sight concerns.
no, to who will they provide it? I mean, we know, but it should. be
To the
stated.
town planning board.
Yes. Sorry, I should have just said it, but.
We're not adjoining, that make a difference from where.
We're in the sight line.
You could change adjoining to surrounding if you wanted.
Yeah.
But that's on you.
and provide to the planning board.
Yes.
I need cut and paste here.
Right.
Okay, this is what I got now. The applicant will meet with surrounding property owners and develop and provide to the Canton Planning Board, to the Town of Canton Planning Board, an updated landscaping plan and visual impact assessment.
Think that works.
Sounds good.
Okay. That's number 21 on the requirements. Do we have any further discussion on this before we read the resolution and take votes?
Addresses my chief concern.
What's that?
So I think that addresses my chief concern.
Okay,
And then just to mention, Kylie talked about it. It's not directly said in the resolution about the mitigation birds and everything, but in one of the items, it does say local permitting, state permitting and stuff.
Right.
Covered.
right, yeah, I read about that and I had agreed with her assessment on that. Somebody else want to read this?
Yeah, I'll read it. Happy to.
Thank you, John.
The resolution approving site plan for Northwood Solar Facility dated March 6, 2023. Whereas St. Lawrence County, New York, S2 LLC, DBA Solar America LLC, applicant proposes to construct a 5.0 megawatt solar power generation facility on 44 acres of a 70.67 acre lot owned by Northwoods Property Incorporated, located on 295 State Highway 310, Canton, New York. And whereas the proposed facility will be operated by St. Lawrence County, New York, S2 LLC, who will enter into lease with the owner for use of the property as a solar facility. Whereas pursuant to the Town of Canton zoning law, the proposed facility is considered a major solar collection system and is permitted through the issuance of a special use permit in commercial and rural zoning districts, subject to site plan review and approval by the Town of Canton Planning Board. And whereas in August 2022, the applicant submitted an application to the planning board seeking site approval for the facility. And whereas the documents submitted by the applicant as part of its initial application submission and numerous subsequent submissions consisted of, among other things, one, an application to a full environmental assessment form, EAF, 3 site plans for a requisite filing fee and escrow amount for the application, and 5, a variety of additional documents. Whereas the planning board, with the assistance of its technical and legal consultants, engaged in a detailed review of the application materials. And whereas on December 5th, 2022, the planning board held a public hearing on the facility to gather comments and consider the verbal and written comments submitted by the public. And whereas pursuant to the Town of Canton zoning law, the planning board has taken into consideration the location, arrangement, size, design, and general compatibility of the facility, the surrounding uses, potential glare and noise impacts, the adequacy of stormwater and drainage facilities, the adequacy of landscaping affecting visual and noise buffers, and the overall impact on the neighborhood. And whereas the application is considered a type 1 action under New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR, whereas the planning board declared its intent to be a lead agency and conducted a coordinated review of its establishment of lead agency and the application pursuant to SEQR and circulated said intent to all involved interested agencies. Whereas all involved interested agencies either consented to the planning board being the lead agency or allowed the 30-day period to lapse, and the planning board as lead agency conducted a thorough review of the project, carefully examining all the potential impacts of the proposed project. it down. Nope. I think I got the right one. Whereas the planning board has thoroughly reviewed part 2 and 3 of the PAF and has been issued in the review of the secret documents and the application by its consulting engineers, Bartner and Lejudas, DPC. Whereas the application was referred to the St. Lawrence County Planning Agency and the planning agency denied the project on September 8th, 2022, and referred back to the town planning board for consideration. The planning board has ultimate decision power in this case and can override the county planning agency's referral with a majority plus one. Whereas on March 6, 2023, the planning board approved parts 2 and 3 of the EAF and issued a secret negative declaration for the project as set forth on the EAF part 3 as written. Well-reasoned statements, which concludes that the facility will not create any significant adverse environmental impacts and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared. Now therefore be it resolved, in accordance with the town of Canton zoning law, the planning board hereby grants the site plan approval requested by the applicant subject to the following conditions, which must be satisfied unless otherwise stated prior to the stamping and signing of the site plans by the planning board chairperson. 1, the applicant shall enter into a decommissioning agreement, which shall be approved by the town of Canton board and town attorney and signed by the town supervisor, by the applicant and by the property owner. 2, the applicant shall issue a performance bond and other equivalent financial security or other equivalent financial security for the decommissioning of the facility, which shall be approved by the town board and the town attorney. B&L has proposed to the town board to provide engineering services in the amount of $15,000, and the town board shall enter into an engineering escrow agreement with the applicant, in which the applicant will agree to fund the escrow amount of $15,000 to compensate the town of Canton for having B&L inspect and advise the town and planning boards on the compliance of the construction with the approved drawings. The engineering escrow agreement must be approved by the town board and town attorney and signed by the town supervisor and by the applicant. 4, the engineering escrow fund referenced above in section 3 will also be used to compensate B&L staff for the labor and expenses incurred in performing semi-annual site inspections of the facility during the spring on or about April 15th and fall on or about October 15th. After construction is complete and the above referenced construction inspection is complete, B&L shall thereafter do semi-annual site inspections of the condition of the perimeter landscaping and site access road and the overall condition of the site. On a yearly basis, the applicant shall place $2,500 in the town's escrow account to cover the cost of the semi-annual site inspections. Following each semi-annual site inspection, B&L will provide a written update to the town and planning boards. The semi-annual site inspection shall be performed each year that the facility is in operation. 5, the applicant shall post a bond or other equivalent security for the operation and maintenance of the facility, including the maintenance of the perimeter landscaping and the site access road at the sole expense of the applicant. The bond or other equivalent security must be approved by the town board and town attorney. 6, the applicant shall have the landscaping inspected at its expense once a year for the first 5 years of operation by a registered landscape architectural arborist, and the applicant must submit a written report to the town and planning boards identifying any areas of landscaping that have died or not thrived and will be replaced by the applicant. 7, the applicant shall provide the town and planning boards with copies of a written agreement with the owner of the property demonstrating that the applicant has the authority to construct the facility on the property. 8, the applicant shall provide the town and planning board with a signed notice of intent and acknowledgement of receipt by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation of the notice of intent and the final stormwater pollution prevention plan, or commonly known as SWIP. The applicant, 9, the applicant shall provide the town and planning boards and B&L with a written proposed schedule for construction of the facility. 10, prior to commencing operation of the facility, applicant must meet with emergency responders at the site to discuss the procedures to be followed in the event of fire and other emergencies. Within 5 days of the meeting, the applicant must provide the town supervisor and town and planning boards with hard copies of the meeting minutes. Meeting minutes must indicate the name and contact information for each of the attendees and provide a detailed description of the procedures that will be followed by the emergency responders in the event of a fire or other emergency. 11, the applicant shall provide payment for all outstanding fees, including any invoices by the planning board and or town board consultants and attorneys. 12, the applicant shall provide the town and planning boards with copies of all other approvals issued for the facility, including all local and state permits as required and sign-offs by all inspected parties and involved agencies. 13, the applicant has agreed that no additional expansion of the facility will be proposed. 14, the applicant will notify in writing by U.S. Postal Service, the town and planning boards 30 days prior to the sale, assignment, or transfer of the facility to another entity. The new owner of the facility must provide the town and planning boards with their contact information, including mailing address, telephone number, and email address. Moreover, no sale, transfer, or assignment may take place unless the new owner agrees in writing to comply with the conditions of the approval. In the event that the town of Canton receives complaints regarding glare impacts from the facility onto affected landowner properties and or public roadways surrounding the project, the applicant must identify the source of the glare impact, implement immediate mitigation measures, and notify the town in writing of the mitigation measures undertaken. 16, in the event that the town of Canton receives complaints regarding light and or noise impacts from the facility onto affected landowner properties, the applicant must immediately identify the source of the light and or noise impacts and implement appropriate mitigation measures and notify the town in writing of the mitigation measures undertaken. 17, after completion of the facility and prior to the commencement of operation, the applicant shall retain the services of a New York State licensed professional engineer to provide post-construction certification that the facility complies with applicable codes and industry practices and has been constructed according to the approved design plans. The applicant shall also provide certification from National Grid that the interconnection from the solar facility to the electric transmission line has been inspected and approved. 18, the applicant and any successor or assign must maintain commercially reasonable general liability insurance in the amount of no less than $1 million each occurrence and $2 million general aggregate, and must name the town of Canton as an additional insured on the policy. And 19, the applicant shall enter into a payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreement which shall be approved by the town of Canton board, the town attorney, and signed by the town supervisor and applicant. 20, the applicant shall enter into a host community benefit agreement with the town as required by paragraph 7F of the zoning law. And then 21, so our new one, the applicant will meet with surrounding property owners and develop and provide an updated landscaping plan and visual impact assessment. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby authorizes the planning board chairperson to stamp and sign the site plans upon the applicant's satisfaction of all applicable conditions set forth above, and be it further resolved that this site plan approval shall be valid for a period of 1 year from the date it is issued, unless the applicant applies in writing to the planning board for 1-year extension at least 30 days prior to the initial expiration period. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be filed in the office of the town of Canton town clerk within 5 days of the date of this resolution, and shall be mailed to the applicant within the same 5-day period.
I think that's it, right, John? The foregoing resolution was voted upon with members of the town of Canton Planning Board voting and signing as follows. We got our places in the wrong spot again.
Is this our final approval of the project? This is it,
Approval or disapproval?
right now, this
Right.
baby.
Yeah, do we need any further discussion?
Well, I don't know, I'm going to vote against it.
Well, you get to put it on here.
I remember correctly, it's a roll call vote, so I think you have to like say your vote out loud.
Oh, okay,
You sign it
Okay.
too, but I'm pretty sure it has to be said out loud for the record.
okay. I'm voting yes. Eric,
The top one. I think I gotta go to yes.
Bill,
I'm gonna vote yes.
Betsy,
Yes.
John,
No,
and Dakota's vote doesn't count, but we'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I vote yes, under the existing conditions of the solar regs and our town law. I vote yes.
Okay,
Just go in the right spot.
just to enter into the minutes, I know all the i's were dotted and the t's were crossed. Did a good job.
Appreciate that. Thank
You
you.
did a good job. It's just the wrong place in my mind.
Oh.
The site is not the right place. And if I was allowed, I would read into the record 2 thoughts on this. Are you gonna allow me to do that?
sure.
Okay. These are all, you don't have to copy these word for word. They're in the documents, the village document and the county planning board's document.
And I'll have a recording and you can even send me a copy if you want.
So the village,
Is any of this from the
This is-
email that you got from the county planning board person?
no, this is coming from the village's letter to us
Okay,
and read by Mike Dalton at our last public hearing. And then the other one is from the county planning board when they met and turned this project down. And it's just taking one paragraph out of each of these. Given the proposed solar, this is from the village, given the proposed solar development and location adjacent to the municipal boundary and accessibility to municipal water and sewer, this project is not supported in principle, but it's not supported by the principles and the recommendations of Canton's comprehensive plan. The development would not preserve the current agricultural use of the property and would foreclose the possibility of the property being developed for housing or other commercial uses that support the economic growth and resiliency of the village. The Canton Village Board believes that this is not the highest and best use of the land. We believe, as does the County Planning Board, that if the property cannot be used for agricultural purposes, then the highest and best use would be commercial, institutional, or residential development. That's the village in the village letter, and this is from the county, just a few sentences. The county planning board and staff feel the highest and best use of the property is for the land to remain in agricultural production. However, if the land were converted into a non-farm use, there are other commercial and residential land uses that are more suitable at this location. This is due to the property's proximity to nearby recreational facilities, institutional uses, professional businesses, and its immediate proximity to the village boundary that would allow future uses to access municipal water, sewer, and lighting services. Thanks.
Did you sign and give us your vote there, John, to make it official?
Just confirming. in my head. You're
We're-
good.
We're all here.
I know, I was just counting, and making sure we met the majority plus one.
You did. Yes.
I know, I like to double check things in my head.
Happy with the amendment on it?
Yes.
So for those who are not, this majority plus one, the county turned it down for the town planning board to have a goal project. We had to vote majority plus one. So my negative vote is accepted, but it doesn't affect the project. The project is still approved.
I think you expressed the feelings of a lot of us.
New business items, briefly, future meeting scheduling. We've got a meeting an informational meeting on the Rich Road project scheduled on, Thursday, 3/16 at 6 o'clock. Will that be up here, Mike, or downstairs?
Obviously.
Okay,
That's for us as a planning board.
correct.
Oh, and that's, it's,
I'll give
planning board, B and L,
Because I'll
Wayne
be the
Buchanan.
one doing.
Yeah, actually, we might have to do it on the.
There's gonna be a Zoom, isn't there?
If it's not a public meeting, I don't attend. So that'll be the question.
I'll be meeting.
I'd like to be there, but I'm getting my knee replaced on Tuesday, and this is Thursday, and I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Oh, come on, you're tough.
This is basically.
We'll all meet at your house.
Yeah, okay. Normally we have a meeting, would have a meeting scheduled the first Monday of the month in April. But do we have anything to discuss?
Not at the moment.
And, can we go over the minutes at the next meeting briefly? Okay,
Is there any other solar projects?
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. On the 16th,
yeah.
only if it's a public meeting.
It- Aren't all our meetings basically public meetings?
That's what we're trying to determine.
Then it has to be put out.
If
to
you're all,
Lisa
if
and-
there's a quorum, it has to be posted. So,
Does
which-
anybody, you're gonna be missing.
I may not be, you never know, but if there's a Zoom component, I'll be there.
The thing is.
If it's a public meeting, there'll be a Zoom component. So there you go.
Maybe it's Zoom for him. I could Zoom
Yeah.
it on my computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
if I don't have to be
I
there,
could just, I could
then
just
someone
email
else
you.
can
so
bring
long-
it.
I don't have the
6
owl,
o'clock,
but.
normal time.
Yeah,
at
yeah.
least here it's
Yeah.
here.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
I'll figure some, I just,
okay.
they don't wanna.
And the April
would be
meeting
a
at
lot
this
of people.
point, is likely not to happen unless something happens
Something drastic.
in the next couple, 3 weeks. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Oh,
That was 2 minutes.
Friday afternoon meeting.
I think we should, not at the, maybe at our next meeting, not, I think, over the next one, we should talk about how. At the planning board, we should make a recommendation to the town board to reconsider where the solar use at this level, at the 25-acre, 5 megawatt level is permitted within the rural zone. And take into account some sort of buffering around the village border.
I like that.
And even take into account some, the hamlets, Lesser Falls.
we need something with
We
more
don't-
teeth. But
You bring that up, excuse me,
Yep.
bring that up. Our zoning law has not been adopted,
Right,
so this is the time.
Yes.
You,
thank you, Mike.
public, I think it's gonna be a public hearing in April.
Mhm.
With the zoning.
Yeah.
Actually, we're gonna whatever. That would be the time. Here it is. We don't want it within X amount of
Right,
miles of. So
The village.
email me something
yeah,
in the next few days and I'll get it to Monica and.
cool.
is that something we should meet about
Do we need to meet and come up?
to talk about on the first Monday in April? So that it's,
We're actually having a Zoom presentation on the 28th of March.
So what's next? Is the 16th next, or is there another?
no,
meeting.
16th is next.
You can't make, the 16th is just,
That's just
Yeah,
and if
information.
you wanna hear
information.
about a bunch of solar.
Okay.
We think we meet at a regular scheduled meeting in April.
Only if it's.
Only if we
before
have something to talk about.
Well,
This particular,
Yeah.
this particular additional,
zoning recommendation.
yes, for the existing solar law. Because we obviously, as Mike said, we should, if we're gonna do something, suggest something to the town board.
that soon enough? Like, when are they meeting in April? When is, if we meet on April 8th, is that enough time ahead to get that information into the zoning?
It'll be the next, it'd be.
I don't know when they're meeting.
Just a minute.
And at this point, the other question is, does it even matter?
If we meet,
If we in the future,
Yeah,
what are you saying? If we meet the first Monday of the month, right?
Yeah, that'd be the first.
April 3rd,
Oh, the April,
and the board meeting is April 12th. And that would be the public hearing for that.
With, is the town board on the twelfth, they're not planning to approve.
No, that's public hearing.
Just for public hearing. So we got some time.
Yeah, okay.
They're not gonna approve it until May or June.
So the third is our,
Do we want to meet on
Is
the
our
third
regular
and try to
meeting?
come up with something?
Everybody.
The first Monday. I'm trying to bring my calendar up.
It
I
wouldn't
can't
have
find
to
it.
be, a long
So I
meeting,
can do
don't
that.
think.
It would be a good project for our planning board.
It's April
Come up
3rd
with
is the
some
first Monday.
suggestions Now that we've experienced all of this.
I can't get my calendar.
And what an experience it's been.
The difficult part is like Mr. Howell mentioned, the parking lots, the buildings and everything. We unfortunately are the last people to know. Because the developers go to these property owners 2 years
Right ahead of
ago
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're the last, they don't just call up and say, hey, where's solar allowed? It's.
It would be nice to have a covered parking lot at soon Canton.
It was a great. It was a great webinar.
I saw
Showed us
one,
all over Europe where they're putting solar and it's all
Well, I
those
was
kind of places.
In Dubai, I saw this.
Well, he's thinking too, but if he doesn't want to
Sure,
come out
keeps us
after
snowing,
teaching
like
class
crazy.
and have his.
That's the
windows
I
up.
did see in New York City, I saw a parking lot it was steel columns.
Are we done
I'm
with
good.
you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Wait, are we meeting April 3rd? Talk
You
about
guys.
this.
Do we want?
I don't. Let's schedule it.
Okay.
Got it.
Good.
To discuss recommendations about buffers and anything
So-
else for zoning.
Okay.
Yeah,
And Joe has new visuals, maybe we can.
I
All,
second John's
all in favor of adjourning?
Yeah. Who
Opposed?
the motion?
John did.
I did.
Thank you.
seconded.
Can I just see a copy of the resolution? I told Ryan I'd send him a picture of. the
I
sheets.
will
We have-
email it to you tomorrow morning.
Okay. I don't think he's on anymore, but maybe he is.
Ryan.
You'll get it tomorrow morning. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you all for your time as well. Really appreciate all the hard work y'all put in. So.
Well, other than the.
Thank you, Kayla.
Yeah. it's been-
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Did a good job on this one.
Yeah, thanks, Kayla.
On 11B were approved by St. Lawrence County Planning Board on that. And they're right on the edge of the village. What did they use? I didn't. I just. What's the difference?
Inconsistencies all.
They were approved by the county.
Well, prior to the beginning of 22, they basically rubber stamped them all.